ragtag group of adventurers fight to stop 3 evil scions from taking over the world. Utilizing a mix of real-time and turn-based strategy, you'll traverse the globe, trying to stop Armageddon. The Lamplighters League is looking for you. Shall you heed the call and give this one a look? It's an Xbox Game Pass.
Not if you value your sanity. Poor performance, non-stop crashes, and lost progress will drive you insane. All the incredible music, great strategic gameplay, and metagame depth in the world could not overcome such crushing flaws. For those of you in the patch-filled future, there is hope, as when it works, the Lamplighters League is incredibly fun. But let's break it all down in the XboxEra review of the Lamplighters League. Over the course of a meaty campaign, you will recruit a surprisingly large number of members to fight off a 3-headed Armageddon-ridden beast, a proverbial one. The Lamplighters League are a group of global adventurers set in a fictional 1930s, working hard to stop the Banished Court, an ancient cult, from reaching the Tower at the end of the world, and ending life as we know it. Things start slow with a ramp-up in team size that lets you settle into the game's mechanics. The turn-based combat is deep, though it's not always clear what certain buffs and debuffs actually do while playing. I did have to go into the game's YouTube channel to find out what exactly each thing did, as they had a rather helpful video, but that definitely shouldn't be the norm. The game works on a grid-based system for all movement and interactions. During turn-based combat, each character can move a set number of grid points, with moves that have their own requirements. Everything works off of an action point system, with most squad members having 2 for each turn. Abilities and use items can increase the number of AP you get, and it should be a familiar system for fans of the genre. There is a severe penalty if your team members are seriously injured or die, with an interesting way to gain them back later in the campaign if a mortal blow is to occur. They'll have to be knocked to 0 health multiple times in a single mission, and you can always save scum if you hate the thought of losing someone. Those saves, though, that's an issue we'll get into later. Overall, I love the mix of real-time and turn-based strategy gameplay, even if what was happening wasn't always the clearest. A huge part of the Lamplighters League is the metagame. Every week in-game, you'll have a set number of missions you can take. One main and various side ones that require you to send out one agent on them to be done automatically. You will be in control of the main mission directly, and choosing which main and side missions to do is one of the key strategic choices you'll have to make. Which missions you choose will determine multiple factors like skill points, supply points, health food, potential jobs, allies possibly recruited, items earned, which of the 3 cult factions you slow down, and a heck of a lot more. You start the game knowing you have already lost the race to finding the eponymous Tower at the end of the world. Instead of the typical race to the MacGuffin, you're doing what you can to slow down the free factions within the Banished Court. Each faction has their own threat meter, and if any of them reach 100%, then you'll lose, and the world as we know it is gone. You'll need to balance missions from in-game week to week, so that you can build up your squad, empower them, and keep the court from accessing the tower. A big part of the game will be scouting, setting up, and then doing heist missions. It's a spoilerish way if I talk about it, but one of these I was able to do was incredibly fun the 3 times I had to successfully do the same one. The game crashing and my saves disappearing truly was a shame, as I was in love with the game up through this point. And the Lamplighters League isn't a bad-looking game, but it runs far worse than it has any right to. I only got to play on Xbox Series X, and it has 2 modes. The first focused on quality, and it runs terribly. The second is focused on performance, and while it runs better, it is unbelievably low resolution. From those I know playing on extremely powerful PCs, the game simply doesn't run well at 4K. You can throw the most powerful hardware possible at it, and it chugs. It seems they really did focus on 1440p, as you can get halfway decent frame rates there with, say, 4090 and a top-spec CPU. The camera can be a mess as well during combat. Typically, it's a 3/4 behind-you view, and the game tries to go into a cinematic look, moving away from that normal view and losing itself entirely inside of objects quite often. It'll jump around, bounce back and forth, or most often just lose all sight of what is going on as it is completely blocked off. In some of the earlier fog or rain-filled missions, the frame rate would tank into the single digits at times. It was confounding as the game probably looks home as an early Xbox One generation title. While the graphical performance was disappointing, the soundtrack is amazing. It helps make a smaller, more focused title feel like something wondrous. A long, varied, and constantly fantastic orchestral soundtrack pumps through every menu and combat encounter with a quality normally only found in the bigger budget titles. In between mission cutscenes are fully voiced with excellent work all around. The writing's decent enough, and I really dug the story that I got to see. Because in a year with a wide variety of polished and very bug-filled games, the Lamplighters League has been the buggiest experience I have had. My characters and NPCs in general would just fall through the floor every single time I did a mission that would use a particular map tile. Every character would be knee-deep in pavement, and the moment they died, they just fall forever. Every single time I went in to load into a mission, the plane that is supposed to show up just wouldn't be there at first, slowly but surely popping into existence, piece by piece over the course of 10 to 15 seconds, and that loading screen is where I never knew if my game would load or crash after a while. Those crashes killed me with this game. They broke me down because they weren't just forcing me to load back in. That wouldn't have been that bad. They were losing my most recent save files. I spent roughly 30 or so hours with the game, yet my current save file at the time of this is roughly 10 or so hours in, as I have replayed the same 4 or 5 missions probably a dozen times, each trying to finish the game for review. One time, I was able to get 4 missions deep from the time I had started having my problems. I figured, okay, I'll have lost maybe a mission or 2 if it crashes. And it did. And when I loaded back in, my save for the past 4 days were all gone. And I was back to where I had been stuck for the last week. I rarely give up on a review, and I really did love playing this game, but it was so broken for me on Xbox at launch that I gave in and I called it quits. Sadly, wrapping things up at launch, I cannot recommend the Lamplighters League on Xbox Series consoles. It does not run well, while not looking very good, and it is a broken, buggy mess. But once this game is patched up and fixed, it is a gem. Great gameplay, a deep metagame, an intriguing story, and one of the better video game soundtracks I've ever heard will be there waiting for you, and hopefully still on Game Pass.